Hello, I'm Dawn Trook, and today we're going to do a class called Speak, Saying Your Truth. This first episode is going to be metaphors, changing your feelings into things. So, we have all these feelings, right? Furious, mad, sadness, fear, satisfaction, love, surprise, more satisfaction, bliss, sorrow, calmness, joy, caring. You might have other feelings as well. What I want you to do right now is try to find a quiet place. You can either sit or lie down. If you sit, try to feel your feet on the ground and close your eyes and take some deep breaths. And try to feel what you're feeling right now. Maybe you're feeling calm. Maybe you're feeling agitated. Maybe you're feeling bored. Whatever you're feeling, just try to find a name for it. And when you do, open your eyes. So when I have a feeling inside of me, that's one place that I like to start when I'm writing poems. It's not the only place to start, but that's where we're going today, because I feel like we have big feelings right now, some of us. We've been in shelter in place, we've been hearing a lot of things on the news maybe, and we might have feelings about them, or we might just have our own stuff we're going through, right? So this is a way that I like to keep a journal. I put an X or do my writing. And on the top here, I'm going to put, I talked about my feeling in my body today being nervous. And so, whoops, spelled that wrong. It sounds the same. And again, I'm going to draw out how it feels, because then I get it out of my body and then I can have an idea of what it feels like in my body. And I just, nervous for me is just it just feels like a squiggly line. I just keep moving and I'm shaking and I'm going in all directions and I can't find my glasses and things like that. So that is sort of how I experience nervous. And then from there, we want to try to make some metaphors. And a metaphor just means using one thing to stand for something else. So today we're going to look at how our emotions would be. We're going to try to create things that stand for our emotions so it can be more specific. So you might say, if you're feeling courageous or brave, you might say, I am a lion roaring. There's other kinds of brave too, right? There's a mouse running across the floor to grab a piece of cheese, even though the cat might get it. So there's a lot of different ways that you feel brave. And this is why we want to make our metaphors, so we can show exactly the experience that we're having and not somebody else's version of courageous. So for nervous, what I want to do here is right here, it's going to be brainstorming. So this is just the first ideas that come to my head. And it's really important, I feel like, to write down whatever comes to your head, even if you think it's not a good idea, because you got to get all the ideas out. So nervous, shaky, scattered, stuck, breathless, chaos, let's see, these are different ways I feel. Moving in all directions. Can't focus. So these are some of the experiences I have when I when I feel nervous. And now I can use those to make metaphors. What's a thing that can connect with shaky? And there's lots of different kinds of shaky, right? I'm thinking really shaky, like an earthquake. Not a giant earthquake, but a little earthquake. Scattered, I can feel like my mind are jacks on the kitchen floor. If I'm stuck, I might be a flow of a creek, stuck on a rock. I'm just that part of the creek that won't go over the rock where the rest of it's going around. Chaos, I might be, let me think, I'm going to come back to that one. So you just keep going. Don't try to get yourself stuck. Moving in all directions. And traffic, confused traffic when the lights are out. And I can't focus. I lost my glasses. Even though it's a different kind of focus, I think about glasses as like a real kind of focus. So this is sort of the ideas that we have. The other thing I like to do is, you heard me say, oh, like I didn't know what chaos it was, and I wasn't sure, like as I was writing, I wasn't sure that traffic when the lights are out really expressed moving in all directions. So my mind was criticizing myself, was saying negative things about myself. So sometimes I like to write these things out, like I am wrong about this. Because what we want to do as writers and getting the sense of telling our own truth is being able to get rid of those negative thoughts. So I like to cross them out and say, my ideas are brilliant. And that might be uncomfortable. It's kind of uncomfortable to me to write that because it sounds a little bit like bragging. But it is true. Our ideas are very unique. The way that we think is very unique. And you can't let anybody tell you otherwise. Another thing I thought was, no one will be interested in this. And then I'll cross that out and say, my ideas are valuable. They're important. So now I'm just going to take a random card and we're going to write a poem together. Okay, let's do it this way. I am not looking at the cards. Joy. That's a great one. Sometimes I don't let myself feel joy as much as I could. All right, so joy. So how do you experience joy? If you could take a moment and just think about that right now and write in your book like ways that you've experienced joy. You might think about a time you felt joyful and how it felt in your body, how the world looked around you when you were experiencing joy. For me, sometimes I feel like everything's brighter, like it has like a shining light around it, and I just see everything more strongly and more specifically. So for joy, I feel a lift in my heart. What do you feel? I wish I could see what you were feeling. You can send me a message. I feel a lift in my heart. I feel everything's brighter. I feel that I want to dance. and skip. I feel that I am a rainbow. I feel light, like I could fly. I feel like inside of me there's like a churning, like I have a lot of energy to go forward. So I'm trying to think of what that would be, like not a windmill, but like a water mill, something that was like moving. Or an engine. And then the sort of physical feeling I feel in my body is this kind of opening. So I feel like it's almost like a flower blooming. Flower blooming in my heart. All right, so those are some things with joy. So you make your list of joy right now. Okay, and now we're going to take this list and we're going to try to turn this list or part of this list into a poem, an actual poem. Now, it's great to be able to communicate your emotions and speak your truth through metaphors, just verbally in the world. So you can tell someone you're mad, or you can tell them that you feel like you are hot lava, and if anybody steps on you, they're going to melt immediately. Or that you're fire and nobody should come near you because they're going to burn, right? That's a really mad, like maybe furious or rageful, right? So, but if you're joyful, you might feel like you are a magnet of light, right? So you can use these in your life as you're talking to help people understand what you're going through and what you're feeling, and as a way of letting people know where you're at so they can understand how it might be better to communicate with you. If you're angry, people might need to give you space. If you're joyful, you might want to have community or friends or family around you so you can be playful with them. So today we're going to write this poem about joy. And so translating it into a poem is a different way to do it as we learn to speak our truth. And one of the things that's great about writing is it helps us learn to say our truth in really clear ways so we can practice it on paper on our own by ourselves before we speak it to the world. And it helps us communicate who we are and what we care about in the world and how we relate to it. So for joy, I'm going to start with I have a flower blooming in my heart, and what I want to do instead of using these other ideas is just keep expanding the idea of a flower and how that the idea of a flower blooming in my heart creates a certain kind of joy. So where is that flower going to go? I'm going to make it now into a vine. It's a morning glory. And I spelled morning like sad, like loss. And I'm not sure if that's how, I think you spell it like morning, like sunshine. But I like the idea that we can turn our sadness or our loss into something joyful. It's a morning glory growing up the fence. know that's hard to read, but I know what it is when I type it out. Growing up the fence in my front yard, which has been dead and brown through years of drought. Now it's starting to live. Now I can get this down and I don't have to keep all these words, but I want to try to get it out of me and then I can fix it up to make it more specific. So this is my story or my poem. I'm going to tear it out so I can work on it again. So after we write our poem, you might want to sit with it for a while, and I'm going to give you some time right now to work on a poem. And so I wrote this really fast because I've been writing poetry for a long time, and it's okay to go as slow as you want. In poetry, you have like not that many words and the words count a lot, or you can write it out fast, and then if you want to change the words later, you can. So how do you experience joy? What is the joy that you're feeling, or that you might feel, or that you have felt? We're giving you time right now to write. Okay. You might not want to rewrite this right away because you might want to take some time to think about it. You might want to write some other feelings down. But I'm going to show you how I do what I call revision. And a lot of writing is revision. Most people, when they write, like the most of the time they spend is on revising. When I started out writing poetry, sometimes I would rewrite poems 40 times. And sometimes one of the rewriting might be that I changed 3 words, because as you can see, they're not super long. But I want to get it as exact as possible to my feelings. So my unique experience, as I said, gets communicated. And I just want to tell you again that everybody's unique experience is important in this world. And that if we all have a chance to say our voices, there'll be more understanding in the world. Okay, so I have a flower blooming in my heart. I'm going to keep that. But I think I might change heart to chest, because I think that heart is also an abstract word. It means different things to different people. It's actually the organ of the heart, which is that weird shaped kind of reddish thing. But I think if I say chest, we know it's this chest, but it also could mean like a treasure chest or a place that I keep things like jewelry or special gifts that I've gotten or secret things that I like to keep. So it has these 2 meanings, and it creates like a deeper understanding of what I'm experiencing. So it's like the heart in my chest, and also I could feel like my ribs are expanding. Like, sometimes when you're feeling happier, you take up more room. So, and it's not just the heart opening, it's the whole chest. Okay, so I have a flower blooming in my chest. And one thing I want to point out is that you can take any word and think about other words that mean that and see if you can come up with a word that feels closer to your feeling or experience. So blooming might be opening or unfolding. Ooh, I kind of like unfolding. I like the way that sounds too. So maybe when I make the next revision, I'll change it to that. I have a flower unfolding in my chest. It's a morning glory. And I like the word glory too because it has this kind of worshipful feeling, like, glory, glorious, like things are just really beautiful and amazing. It's a morning, and you have the difference between morning, which is like the early part of the day, but also the way I spelt it, it's like when you lose somebody or somebody dies and you're sad about it, and then glory. So you have this kind of worshipful experience, and then it's growing up the fence. And I think I want to change some of these words, like growing. I want to change it to creeping, because that means it's happening slowly. And then there's also this kind of feeling that it's like creepy crawlers or something, but then it's going to turn into something beautiful. So there's this idea that the joy is coming from something that's not feeling so great originally. Creeping up the fence, and I could say creeping up the wall, the lattice, which is like that crisscross wood that sometimes people have that flowers grow up on. So there might be another way to use the word fence, and I'll think about that because I'm not super happy with the word fence. As you can see, words are really important in poetry. They're the main building block. Like when you make a painting, you have the building blocks of color and line and where things go in the painting and shape. And but in poems, you have words, words are also sounds because every letter has a different sound. You also have lines because poems don't go to the end of the page; they break off, and you call each one a line. And then you have other things like punctuation and rhythm and things like that. And we'll talk about rhythm and sound in our next class. So the words are where I like to start because the more carefully I choose them, the more my experience is my truth. Okay, so it's a morning glory creeping up the fence. Or maybe up the wall, because a wall kind of blocks me. Okay, in my front yard. I think I'm going to say in my backyard, because the backyard's more hidden. The grass has been dead. Five years of drought. Through 5 years of drought. You might be asking how I read my own handwriting because it's pretty messy. And then I felt like my last line wasn't that strong, like it wasn't that specific. I could say new. If I'm not using growth there, maybe I can use it here. New growth comes slowly but surely. So all of a sudden I'm saying this isn't so much a poem about like present joy, but about like slowly coming joy. And that becomes my truth. Like I tried to write a poem about joy because that was what we picked, but really that's not my truth right now. I'm feeling the hope of new growth, but I'm also feeling the pressure of the hardness of this period of time where we've had a whole new world lately. But I do feel hope. All right, so we have this draft of a poem. This is called a draft. Every version we have of a poem is a draft. So we might have our brainstorm draft. We'll have like our rough draft, which is getting closer to a poem. And then eventually we'll have our final draft. I'm going to leave this here for a minute while I cook it and think about what I'm going to do with it next. And sometimes I might want to leave it here for a few days or a couple weeks. And sometimes there's poems. I have poems that I wrote like 15 years ago that I couldn't quite get right. And then I bring back and I say, oh, now I have an idea of what to say about this. So I want to leave this here and I want to talk about another truth that we might want to tell, which is what we believe. A lot of times, if you're younger, people might not want to hear, or you might feel like people don't want to hear what you believe. But the thing is, the world is yours, right? Like, the grown-ups are going to grow older, and you're going to be taking the world over, and you have a chance to change it into the world that you want. So figuring out what you believe and what you think the world should be is really important. And I believe that us as older people should honor that and try to help do whatever they can to leave you the world that you want to have. So I think it would be important, I would find it important to hear what you want and what your experiences are and what your fears are and your hopes are, because it's my responsibility to help bring that in, to help usher it in. And I'm not going to do it on my own or pretend that I know what you want. And I feel like all young people have agency, have the ability to act and move and do things. We see a lot of young people doing work for global changes, for world changes, for community changes. And I want to encourage you that if you want to be, you can be part of that change by taking actions and trying to figure out what you believe and what actions you want to take is useful to help you get directed in that. So I feel like poetry and finding the words for what you believe can be a part of that. So I'm not going to guess what you want to do, but I'm going to talk about some beliefs that I have. And sometimes when I write poetry, I figure out what I believe about different things. So, when there was the drought, which I wrote about here, which was a while ago and lasted for a long time, and I was worried about farming and what was happening to the birds, I wrote about that, and I felt like I wanted people to understand how important and valuable water was and how we needed to not use as much in ways that were too much or excessive. So I think right now one of the things I'm thinking about in the world is how we can come together and help each other. We have people that believe different things, and we want to find a way where what we all want we can help each other find it. And that's not always possible. But I'm going to write about that because I do believe that sometimes we create separateness or fight with each other about things that we don't need to fight about. So we're going to write a little bit about unity. And that's like all helping become one. Like, I like to think of it as instead of thinking about myself and what I need, I'm thinking about what everybody needs together and how we can create like a world where we each put the whole, like everybody's needs in mind. So unity. That means like oneness, wholeness. This means like not being selfish. Who needs more? Like, I've been a person that like always had more than other people. Like, I grew up in a neighborhood and in a house where we had, like, I always got to have more clothes and lots of toys and things that I wanted. And I was able to go to the college that I wanted to, and not everybody had that. So right now I want people who haven't had that to be able to have what I had, or like to be lifted to that. Who needs more than me or hasn't had? How can I help? point out as you brainstorm, your word that you might be writing about or your idea that you might be writing about might change. Just like my idea of joy turned into more like how to make good or how to look for hope when things have been sad or hard, right? And like that hope towards joy. So I see as I'm writing about unity, where it's going is like, I don't know how to have unity until other people have more equal help with things they need. So this is some ideas I have. And then oneness could be, I'm trying to think of ways that everything connects, like flower petals. I'll make like one thing, but they're separate. And wholeness could be, I don't know why I think of bread. I don't know why. It's not like it's one loaf of bread. But I'm just going to put it because I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to say what comes to my mind. Not being selfish would be, I feel like bees aren't selfish because they all work together, right? And they take from the flowers and they go to the honey, or they go to their hive and they make what they make, and everybody has their role. And then who needs more than me hasn't had what I had. I'm going to come back to that because it seems like a lot of different pieces and parts. And how can I help? How can I lend a hand? Uplift. Support. So I think like support is a good one because it's like I'm not trying to fix somebody. I'm trying to just be there for people to lean on or to climb over. So that makes me think of, and see how like I'm just letting these ideas come in my head. So in terms of support, I want to be like a jungle gym that people can climb over to get where they need to go. I don't know where this is going, but I want to be a jungle gym. That's a weird word, a jungle gym. I think there might be a better word than that. I want to be a jungle gym that neighbors can climb. I have my house with a strong foundation. And I want to, so I'm having the negative thoughts come right now. So I'm going to say this sounds arrogant. And I'm also feeling like it sounds like I'm the one that can fix somebody. And that's not exactly what I believe. So that means like I started this, and it's not like, I'm just crossing it out because I want to say what I believe. So I'm going to try to do this again. Let me look back at this page. How can I help? I think I feel like what I need to do is just be quiet and listen, and then give people what they need or be there in the way I want, the way they want, not the way I want. All right, so I am a silent night. waiting for a whisper. Waiting for a word. I'm feeling maybe confused. I'm feeling maybe afraid. So what would be a way that I could say that I'm feeling I need to be a mouse. I need to be a mouse. Waiting. No, I don't like that either. All right. Okay, so I think what I want to do, the idea that keeps going into my brain from the brainstorm I did was the bees. And I know there's been a lot of poems written about bees, and some famous poets have written about it. And sometimes that worries me, like I'm going to be stealing or it's not unique. But I think because I can't stop thinking about it, I just have to write about it. And I'm kind of obsessed with bees. Like I remember when I was a kid in second grade, I remember exactly the time we learned about bees and beehives and things like that and how the whole bee colony worked. And I would look at bees and I could see like when they had the pollen in their legs, and I was somebody who looked at insects a lot. And the same with ants. Like I'm pretty obsessed with ants. I know that's a weird thing to be obsessed with, ants and bees and spiders and bugs, but it just is just something I love. I used to catch them and examine them and things like that. So I'm going to write about community in terms of bees and our ants and see if that helps me find my belief or how I want to help community or just the way I want to be in community, where I'm one of many and that my needs and my distractions of like wanting to have this thing or this phone or this house or this car is not as important as what everybody needs and what our job is to run as a community. So I'm going to call it for now community. The name will change. So, okay, the bees do their bee thing. I know that's not. And this may be a poem that I have to look up some of the language about bees again to remind myself. And the bee man of West Texas just died. And that's an actual man that I knew when I lived in Texas, and he was this amazing man with sparkling eyes, and he was just so happy about his bees, and he provided honey for the whole community, and his name was Wilburn Elliott. And so I feel like he had a place in the community too, and it was a very specific place. He didn't try to be more, he didn't try to be less. He was the bee man, and that's what we call him. Wilburn Elliott, the bee man. Usually we just call him the bee man. The bee man of West Texas just died. Can anyone replace him? Where will we get our honey? And what happens when the whole town loses or runs out of honey? We can live without honey, right? But we can't replace the bee man. Wilburn Elliott. But the bees continue to buzz, pull, carry pollen from, and I don't remember what flowers the bees in West Texas get their honey from, so I'm going to look that up. From the blank flower back to the hives. And I can't remember how the pollen turns to honey, so I'm going to look that up. And this happens. I'm just going to put in this, and they do this. Someone will raise it and raise the bees. Even though the bees don't need raising. They're born knowing what they want to do, what they need to do. And I think where that goes, the next thought that I have is really something I didn't expect to have, which is I wish I was born knowing what I need to do. What my job is in the hive. And I'm going to say, I listen for the buzz of the all. And it's not a real buzz, right? I'm using the language of bees and the hive to talk about community and the community buzzing and like moving in the way that I'm supposed to move. I listen for the buzz of the all, my town, my community, to move me. I always wanted to be the bee man. I wanted Wilbur Wilborn to teach me his bee ways. But that's not where I'm led. or wearing scent. And putting words on paper and showing you how to put words on paper. And we are learning together how to speak our truth.